So, welcome back to Laptops and Drinks, episode 6.
Woo!
So, my name's Anne-Marie.
I'm Davina.
I'm Shad.
I'm Sharon.
So, as we all know, we're on YouTube and on all social media platforms. So, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.
Ding.
Ooh. So we couldn't leave it there. So we're going to continue with part 2
Yes.
of Dating Over 40. So Shads.
Yes. So that was really interesting, isn't it? We couldn't just leave that there. And I felt like near the end of the last episode, I was rushing through a question and didn't actually get your guys' views on one of the questions that I asked.
Yeah, because this is therapy for you, isn't it, as well?
No.
No, okay, sorry.
No, it's not.
I was just checking.
This is not about me.
Okay? Okay, I'll just, yeah. I just want to make sure.
Thank you, Davina.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, you know, you're getting everything you need from what we're doing here. Sorry, I mean the listeners are getting everything
The listeners are getting everything they need. Yeah, this does not pertain to me.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the questions that I asked you guys in the last episode was about kind of the dating scene now in 2025. And we were speaking a bit more about the responses of kind of women taking the lead and shooting their shots, which wouldn't happen back in the day. And this narrative that's going around on social media, more in the under 40s, around men having wanting princess treatment and stuff along those lines. Do you think the dating scene has changed? And if so, how? And if not, then why not?
100%. You know, because we've talked about it before in terms of media, you know, and we never had that. We didn't have the internet. You know, if you wanted to meet someone, you had to physically meet them, whether that be at work, if you were at college, university, you know, just going out. So I think it's very different now. But it's interesting when I do speak to people who are over 40 that use dating websites, it can go either way. It's either they meet someone and that's marriage. It's very intentional. And it can work really well. And I've also spoken to people that have said they've gone on dating websites and they said it's no different from meeting people in person. They'll still cheat. They'll still go so it doesn't make a difference whether it's on. Because you would hope that if someone's online, that there's more intention that you want to find someone.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case.
It's not always the case, yeah.
Because it's just they're hiding, I suppose. You know, you can still hide behind, you know, being on a website.
Do you think it depends on the site, though? Do you think it depends on the actual site that they're on?
What do you mean, if it's free
I've
or
heard,
if you have to
meaning like if you're on a site where it's free and you can maybe see the person who you're matching with, because a lot of these sites have like different restrictions and they want you to pay for different prescriptions. So do you think people who pay are more intentional than those who don't pay?
Yeah, I've got a friend who, you know, was dating and said, look, I am serious. I know what I want. I don't want to be on a free app where people can just talk to me just because. I'd rather someone demonstrate their commitment to wanting to date. And then also there was something about the pool of people being smaller. And I don't know. Does that mean that you're more serious? But I think that it was felt by that person at least that actually there would be similar-minded people that are willing to pay per month.
Yeah.
But there are some people that are still old school, like still want the traditional way of meeting people in person and not going through apps. Because there are, I remember when I started dating, like, and started to use apps, you know, you used to have some anxiety. Well, I didn't have any anxiety. I remember I went literally all the way from North London to meet someone in Kent, and I didn't even give it a second thought. And the thing is, I didn't even give it a second thought. Like, you know,
That could be murderers.
That's the first
and it was at the point when I was like, wow, I came over here, and then when I when I saw a person, I was like, this is how far I came. I was like, could have just done that online. But you just, I don't know. I think people, it just depends on your kind of school of thought around how you want to meet someone in terms of relationships. Like, if I was still dating, I'd be open to all areas, like in terms of meeting someone online, face to face. I wouldn't just kind of close myself off. But some people are really still traditional. They want to meet someone.
You talked about old school though. So is there anything such as what's new school? What is new school? And is new school what do you get what I mean? You know, like how you talked about old school. In my mind, when you say old school, I'm thinking the old way of traditional dating, chivalry, kind of how dates go. You know, nowadays, what is the new school of dating?
Well, I think...
But isn't it dating apps?
Yeah.
No. What I mean is, we talked about old school in the sense of how you maybe would get the date
Yeah.
So like you might, how you would have met the person.
Yeah.
But then kind of the dating process of, you know, how people, I want to go back on
What
this.
that first date looks like.
Yeah, like
Who initiates that bit?
the
Yeah.
first date? Where, like, what sort of places do you go for? Who pays for the first date? Who pays for the second date?
I think it's really interesting, yeah.
What sorts of dates do people go on? What is the new school?
But the thing is, like, so I'm listening to you, and like we're already, so, you know, as a gay woman, it would be two women that would be, whereas for you guys, heterosexual, you're thinking about whether it's the man or the woman.
Yeah, in regards to the gender role.
Yeah, whereas it for us, you know, for me, like if I was going out on a date, like, you know, if I was the one that did the asking of the date, then my view, I'd be the one that would be saying, you know, I'm going to carry this, I'm going to pay for this. And if somebody else, you know, and if somebody else asks me on a date, I'm not going with the expectation that they would be the one that pays, but I would also state and say, look, you know, I'm happy to contribute as well.
You see, I have different views to that, and I guess it's different.
Of course.
I guess it's different in that sort of sense. So
You want to be wine, dine, paid for.
No, let me just express myself in regards to that, because so I date men, and for me, when I think about kind of in old school tradition wise, if a man, I wouldn't ask a man out on a first date. And I don't know if maybe that's why I'm single.
But I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't ask a man out on a first date. I don't think that's how it goes.
Why?
No, because this is just how my mind has been programmed. Okay, so I wouldn't ask a man out on a first date. He would have to ask me out.
Are you talking about before? Or are you talking about now?
Even now,
Okay.
I wouldn't ask him. I could, even if I spoke to him, I thought, that person's nice. It would be nice to, maybe I would say something to let them know that I'm interested.
That's what I was gonna ask.
In like maybe spending more time with them or getting to know them more. But I wouldn't ask them on the first date.
What's the reasons for that?
Because I like men who can lead.
Okay.
And because that's what I like, I want to be able to see those attributes and to see how they manage with that. And when it comes to like the first date, I would pay for a first date, but I wouldn't have a second, and that's just my view. Because I'm being honest.
So you don't. So
So you would offer
no, I
to
would
pay
no,
half,
no.
maybe.
If I was going on a first date, I would expect a man, and this is part of me in my how my brain's programming chivalry. I would expect the man to pay for the first date. If we got to the date and he was like, okay, well the bills, however much it is, can you pay half? I wouldn't cause a scene. I wouldn't say nothing. Because sure, because gal have vex money, isn't it? So, or if they said, oh, let's pay half or something along those lines, I would pay. I wouldn't go on a date with someone and like if they hadn't offered to get me a drink and I'm dead for thirsty. No, I would go to the bar and buy my own drink. Do you get what I mean?
But where does that
you
come?
wouldn't buy
Where
him a
does
drink.
Huh?
You wouldn't buy him a drink.
No, if he asked me to, I would.
Oh, okay.
But the point that I'm making is those are things that I'm looking at this person from the very initial first date, and we wouldn't go on a second date.
But
if I had to pay the bill on the first date, and I know this is me cutting down the pool even slimmer.
Yeah,
than
no,
it's
but
already
I just
slim.
think it's like you know what, people have their views, and you know, if that's your way of thinking and that's your mindset, then that's just you. But I just think like, where does that come from? Like, where does that come from deep down in terms of there's a real opportunity for you to kind of meet someone, but because they're not taking a particular step in the way that you would like them to, then there's a real opportunity that you could also be missing out.
And maybe I have done, but I think...
But I guess I'm trying to understand is like, does that run really deep in the sense that you would not be willing to think outside the box? Or you feel very strongly...
I've been on a first date before where I've met up for a drink and I've had to go to the bar and buy my own drink. And then I made a comment about it in a further conversation. And the person was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice. I was just so interested in like the conversation we was having that it totally slipped my mind. Let me take you to brunch tomorrow. And in a way to kind of, so I wouldn't just cut it off without making you know my views in regards to that. And don't get me wrong, this is not because I expect a man to pay for every date, but I think it's for me it's more about a mindset of having someone who's a provider mindset. I have a job, I work, I have an income, and I'm happy to spend my money. I would happily pay for dates and stuff like that, but I know for me I want someone who's got that provider mindset, that they're not exactly wanting to be there and like, let's get our calculator out, this is half the bill, this is your half, this is my half. So that works for some people. But if in the sense of the first date is for me is the important part. We can work it out after that. And as I said, it's not because I need somebody to mind me or look after me. I have an income, I have a job, but it's the mindset that's the important part for me, the provider mindset.
And I think what some men might say is that they have all intentions of paying for the first date, but they want the woman to at least acknowledge, to maybe say it. They're not asking you for the money,
Well,
but
I'm
just
gonna lie. I'm a transparent person, you know. I'm gonna lie and act like, shall I?
But I suppose
pay the bill?
but Shad, the same way that you're trying to test them out to kind of look, are you a provider? They're looking to see, well, as my maybe future partner or my future wife,
but they'll
what
see
have
that
you
in
got
future
to offer?
dates.
But they want to see it on the first date as well.
Yeah.
The same way you want to see it, they want to see it on the first date.
I think the
I
dating
agree.
scene is very different between heterosexuals and gay or queer people, because actually
that wouldn't be an issue, would
No,
it?
no, I'm not sure you're not. I can't speak for else, but if I'm, in the times when I have been dating, I was, if I liked someone, then I was going to approach them. I wasn't going to get into, are they going to ask me on a date, or are they going to pay, or they're going to, if I like you, I'm going to show you I like you. I'm not going to kind of mess around with that. And I'm hoping the other person is going to do the same. Whereas actually it's a gender role for you in terms of who is going to do it what and who's going to do it what and at what time they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because I'm not a person that would go up to another person.
Yeah.
So
So
that's my
either.
personality.
But then that's different, then, isn't it?
We're different personalities, but we agree on that. So
But that's the thing, because we're very, because, Shad's more outgoing and you probably
and I
could.
still wouldn't, but I still wouldn't.
But then I agree with Sharon's point. Then that means that it's about us being heterosexual and not about personalities.
Yeah.
So you said I'm with you.
Yeah.
My personality isn't that I wouldn't put myself out
no.
in sort of any situation. I'd be more than willing to hang back. I'm good here.
Yeah.
But it's not because of who we individually are, because you're a bit more outgoing. But you still wouldn't skirt to
Yeah, I
go,
wouldn't.
hello, hi, I'm interested in you.
No.
Even just to
Oh my
chat.
gosh,
That's
even
what I'm saying,
thinking
not,
about
not
that.
even asking the date, but even just to go and
Approach
say hi.
them.
Yeah, approach. So it's not.
Yeah.
You're right. The structures already
So
exist.
it's a gender
Yeah.
role.
We're just playing as to what we've been told, but I find interesting that now we're in 2025, women are talking about being empowered and doing things differently, and that they kind of want to take some control. But then
let me take a chat with man.
but it's not necessarily disruptive of some of these. Also, some women are doing it. Some women are like, listen. You get I've met women that are like, I'm going for it.
Yeah, so
Because
right.
if you
So
like
right.
one life,
And I love it for
if
them.
you like someone,
it could pass you.
why not? I mean, don't
It's the
get me wrong.
rejection.
And
the
but
same
that,
way guys feel that way, and I suppose women feel that way as well. But yeah, for me, it'd be.
but that rejection is always going to be there, regardless, right? Because even if you do allow the other person to come forward and say, "Oh, I like you," the rejection can still come at another point, right? Where they're just, they stop calling you or they're not responding. So you can't run from rejection. It's going to be where it needs to be. I just think it is a different mindset in terms of how you approach relationships and how I would approach relationships and the things that you would consider. Because I'm listening to, I'm like, wow.
Is it?
Why not just go and say hello or say you like
But
the
think
person?
about the stereotypes
I should-
though,
I
about
probably say
women,
hello, but I wouldn't
about
go,
women, straight women going up to men I don't know, let's be honest, in terms of oh, she's fast or she's hungry.
Yeah.
I think that's changing. I think that's changing in regards to the because a lot of the women that I say, a lot of women that I've spoken to who shoot their shot will say and end up in relationships will end up saying the guy will be like, oh, I liked that she came up to me. I think is it
We have to get over ourselves.
But to me, it blows my mind because in my era of growing up, it was never a thing. It was never a thing of you seeing a woman going on the road to say to a man, oh, I like your haircut, or do you know anything like that? It's always men who would approach women. It was never a thing.
No, it was never a thing. But actually, as you get older and you're getting a little bit wiser, you realise actually the importance of maybe just kind of stating what it is that you want. And that becomes something you should be doing in all aspects of your life. That I sometimes don't think we're always clear about what it is we want and need. And actually, it's also about practicing as you mean to go on, isn't it, in terms of the relationship? Because there's still more work to do around stating how you feel when something becomes difficult and sharing your emotions. So you've got to show, and we come back to that level of vulnerability that we talked about.
Yeah. Gosh, here we go. It definitely is a level of vulnerability.
It's a level of vulnerability that it's not about, it's about, being empowered, but you've got to kind of put yourself out there to say to someone.
But I think by default, what people usually say is, I'm independent. I don't need a man.
Yeah.
I'm not
when
gonna
deep
lie,
down they want one.
Yeah, that's so true.
That used to be me at one stage of my
But
life.
now you're
Listen,
like, no, I want a man now.
My dad's I'm joking.
She wants a man, but yet
She's not prepared to approach it.
How much do you want a man?
Listen, on to the next question. Yeah, I'm not desperate. Okay, I'm not desperate. Okay.
But it's a fine line, though, isn't it?
And it's not that I don't get man trying to look.
Okay.
Just so y'all know.
Just so in it. But it's my man.
But it's about relationships.
This is not even about me.
It's not about you.
Let's go on
It's
to
about
the back
relationships,
yeah.
isn't it?
So let's go back to the questionnaire. So one of the questions were, when thinking about your dating experiences now, which is over 40, what are the factors that you consider when choosing someone to date? And what are the qualities that you look for in a potential partner? What do you think most people said? Or what do you think was the responses to that?
So this is for people over 40.
Yeah. So now, remember they asked previously about when they was younger.
Yeah.
So now that they're over 40, what is it? The
Financial
qualities?
security.
It's basically what you were talking about.
Family values.
Yeah, they want the communication, they want the trust. They don't want the cheating.
No.
They want,
emotional
they're looking at
intelligence.
long-term
Yeah.
relationships, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not kind of looking for something
not-
short-term.
Yeah, no games.
No games. They want long-term
Them
relationships.
tired at the
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
Emotional
Yes.
connection.
Settle down.
Emotional intelligence.
Some
So,
ambitions.
yeah.
I think.
Definitely.
possibly
alignment.
family.
Yeah.
Family.
Let me go through some of them. So when some people answered in regards to people being intellectually mature, someone said them not being a mummy's boy.
Oh boy. At this
Someone
big
talked
age?
about them having faith or some form of spirituality.
Okay.
They talked about honesty. Some people talked about vulnerability and great communication. There's still someone that said, this one, I'm going to read this one out, that they work, they must be driving, no baby mama drama, have their own place, quality kind, family orientated, adventurous, likes to travel, good hygiene.
My gosh.
That was one person's response.
But even the whole thing when people say mummy's boy, they have to break that down. There could be so many different reasons why people do that. If they're a carer, looking after, do you know what I mean? And I think even some of the these are all things that can happen. It's not, for me, it's not a deal breaker, but I know for some people it would be.
And I found that response I found particularly
Hygiene and all that
interesting.
kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
good
Wow.
hygiene.
Yeah. Well, yes, please.
Who are you meeting?
I know.
Yeah.
Someone
that
else
sounds
said.
very basic.
Yeah.
Someone else said one that I totally agree with: integrity.
Okay.
I think even when I think about being young, when I was younger, integrity wasn't a thing that I necessarily thought about. Like, did I even know what integrity meant in that sort of word?
Yeah.
But definitely integrity. We had somebody else who talks about personality and easy on the eye. So there's still
attraction.
there's still something in regards to attraction. Talked about someone having empathy. A lot of people said a job, to be honest, and I thought, wow, is there like so many over 40s that are unemployed?
But I just wonder how much of that's about people's past experiences of relationships, and they're kind of they're flipping all the things they didn't have,
Yeah.
To
and
what
they're
they
like,
want.
these
Yeah.
are my bottom lines. That you're not coming in here
Non-negotiables.
if you don't have a job and you
Yeah.
don't drive.
Yeah, I found that interesting. There was still some more responses. Family orientated. Someone says about aligning morals. That allows me to be me. Someone who allows me to be myself. Someone else said in regards to transparency and them having goals. We had personality, transparency, own business or employment. There's quite a few employment, owns their own home, character, potential. Oh gosh,
Owns their own home.
There's a lot of that there,
Yeah.
isn't there?
I mean, you could own a home together eventually, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
the thing is, more people are renting
They are
than
now.
Yeah.
buying. So
It's expensive in
you're some of those things you just put yourself right out the running for relationships.
Is it that people want equals though? Is it that they've got theirs and they're like, I want you to have
They
yours?
may be that.
I'm not thinking about building together at this point. I don't know.
Because I've already built.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there is that.
Do you know what I?
But then
I
that's what I'm
didn't
saying.
see?
Then don't you then kind of like, if you've already built and you've already got your job and you're successful in your career and you've done all the things that, and you want someone to meet you on part, are we saying it's too difficult for someone to not quite be where you're at, but to join you eventually?
Over 40, though, I do wonder if people have an expectation that by then they want to sort of meet someone roughly where they are. Like, how much time does someone have left in a job or career to kind of grow and develop further? I don't know.
Well, it depends on if it's someone's goal, though, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
Yeah, it depends if that's they might not. So there might be people who don't have a desire to own a home. There might not be people who don't have it, or do you know what I mean?
Because actually, that that home owning sometimes comes from your own values around your parents' values that they drum into you. You know, when you leave in home, own your own home. But actually, does that become less and less of an importance? But then, does that mean it puts you out the running with like opportunity to meet?
Yeah, for some people it would be, Sharon.
Yeah.
They would say, like, you know what,
if it's their non-negotiables,
No.
Some people don't want to live together. I'm not saying over 40, but maybe over 50, for example.
I heard someone say that
they
the other
want
day.
to date,
Yeah,
but not live together.
Yeah.
But is that a relationship? What's that?
Well, it's
a
their version.
version of a relationship.
So when you
Which-
get on my nerves,
which is-
I go back to my house, you go back to
Yeah.
yours. Okay.
Cheryl Lee Ralph. Do you know who Cheryl Lee Ralph is?
No.
She's an actress.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Google her. She lives with her husband and no, she doesn't live with her husband. She's married and her and her husband live in 2 different states in America. I saw an interview on I'm sure it was Paul C. Brunston's interview with Jamelia.
Oh, yes.
Recently. And even she spoke about her ideal relationship would be them living separately. But
Is
they're
that
in a-
now?
Yeah.
Experience.
Because of her past experience about being in a relationship and them living separately. So people have different versions of relationships. And actually, interestingly, I've got questions about unconventional relationships coming up. But I just wanted to kind of go through a few more things that people had spoken about. So I talked about emotional intelligence. Some people said, some people commented on their past experiences and why that's determined what they think now. And especially there was a comment where someone spoke about having quite an abusive relationship beforehand, and now they view things very differently and they have to do extra screening, which you would expect. But they also want to see how people treat other people. So that person spoke about how they treat children, people with additional needs, their family, the elderly people. In regards to that, a lot of people still also talk about good personality, having laughter. They still want that laughter, having faith, and ambition. And I found it interesting that no one in that age range, because we did have quite a good age range. There were still people that was in their 60s and over 60s who responded. No one really talked about companionship in there as well. I guess. Because in my mind, you sometimes think that people who are older, at some point, maybe they already feel like their life's established and they might not necessarily want companionship is what they're looking for, isn't it? That's what I assumed. But no one actually said that.
But isn't that a version about, like what you said about Jamelia and the other actress? Because if you're living in 2 separate properties, it's just companionship. You've got everything, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got your own home, you're working. It's just maybe meeting up with someone every now and again. Is it maybe not like a different version? Probably.
I think people are just trying to find ways to make things work, right? Trying to move away from the traditional ways, because you know you hear some good things about some of those work relationships that have been established for many years, but you also hear some relationships that just don't work. So people are just being more open to relationships. You know, when you think about, you know, there's lots of conversation happening around Neo and actually, you know, his relationship and his 3 wives and, you know.
So that's the polyamorous relationship, which brings me on to the next question. That was on my quiz. Nicely done, Sharon. So the next one was, what are your thoughts on alternative types of relationships, i.e. Polyamorous relationships, situationships, side relationships? Have you ever or would you ever knowingly enter a relationship with somebody who is already in a relationship? Please explain.
Is that what you put in the quiz? I mean,
that was the
survey.
question. Yeah.
What did people say?
What do people say?
So the responses were, someone said, no way.
What's all of it?
They said someone tried to entice me before with his wife. So I think that's more polyamorous they was talking about. Someone said, not sharing, that's not my style.
Oh,
Someone said,
that
I've
is
thought
yes.
about it. Someone said, I've thought about this, but because of my character, I don't think it would work. Some people said, back in the day, I would have said yes. I would want a side girl. So this was a male who answered. But they said now they're grown and they know what they want. They know that they want their one woman, their queen. They just want one person. Quite a few people. Oh, someone said NASA. Someone else said like live and let live. So it might work for some, but not for others. Whatever that feels like for you. So we had people saying they're not against it, but it's just not for them. They feel strongly against kind of cheating. Quite a few people talked about they can't share. Like if you're mine, you're mine, and that is it. And they said someone else said actually they think that there serves a purpose. So different types of relationships, i.e. polyamorous relationships, side relationships, situationships. Some people said that there's a place for it.
Who's got an open marriage? Who had an open marriage? A celebrity? There was,
Was it Will? Will and
not
Jada?
Mary J.
No, Will
Blige.
and Jada.
Do they have an open marriage?
Isn't it?
Well,
open?
Speculated.
there might
Was
be
it
open in
empty?
there. Yeah, is it open? I don't know. There was.
I just feel like these are not things that people tell you that they're.
Is it because it's
as in-
viewed how society
that's
will
what I'm
view them?
saying. I think now we're starting to have a conversation, but I think it's interesting in there. People can be honest, but actually, I've never met a friend that said to me like I'm in a polyamorous relationship or that we've got an open relationship. We invite people in. I've had a friend say to me that she's had her partner put to her that he'd like to bring a third person in, but just in the bedroom, just to be, but not in the relationship. But I don't think people talk about that.
I've never met no one who's in a polyamorous relationship, but I've definitely met people who's had situations. Remember, when we say situationships, and that's a lot of the grey area now today, isn't it? When we're talking about dating, how do you, from the dating to the relationship, is there a grey area of situationships? Some people, what part of the question was also about side relationships, and about people entering relationships with people who they know is already in relationships. So obviously that's a form, not in the kind of consensual way. That was more in regards to one partner is cheating and someone, are you happy to play the side position?
Did you say coastal?
Because you're not the oxtail, are you? You're not the oxtail with the rice and peas and the coleslaw on the side. Like, make it about food. I'm hungry. I'm joking.
Coleslaw. I was like, oh my God. I mean,
Beans or coleslaw with that?
coleslaw. It's really got to be down to times are changing, right?
Yeah.
And you know, our generation may have had strong views about that, but the generations coming up are much more fluid, are much more fluid, and you know, as the generations get older with those strong views, they're the dying out generation. It will just look very different. You know, I think when I think about, you know, my son is 7, when he's probably at a point when he's going to become, you know, these kids are talking about relationships now, you know.
Exactly.
You know, they're like, you know, they'll be like, oh, I've got a boyfriend. I'm like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you
From
know about
nursery,
boyfriend?
That's
Bobby's
my
my
girlfriend.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Do you know how to spell Bobby?
It's true, but I just think
boyfriend,
it's going to be very different. So I think people have to have their wits about them and just be honest about what you're willing to.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're consenting to that, it's where people
Consent,
people go behind their things or make up what they think might happen or might be. They make up what they think the other person's going to say. Don't do that. Just speak openly about what your intentions are. And then start from that, because actually it might be something that someone's never considered. Because if it's going to help to, you know, prolong your relationship, and that's the person you want to be with, and you have, I don't know, it's not for me.
I saw this clip on social media once, and it was the husband had cheated on the wife. They'd been together for about 20 years, and the wife went to the husband and said, "Listen, we're not getting divorced. We're staying married, but I want you to know that I will sleep with other people. I will go out, but you've now opened our relationship, so this relationship has now turned into an open relationship. We've built a family, we have a home, we have children, we've built a life together, and since you've decided to step out, I'm going to be also doing that, but we're going to keep our family unit.
Sounds like something I watched on TV.
Yeah, I saw a clip of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, and one of the other questions which I wanted to put in there, which I was interested to know about, is do you think people have different experiences based on their ethnicity? And yeah, when they're dating, what do you think? And we did have a few different ethnicities here. Should I go through some of the responses?
Yeah, because it's quite a broad question.
Yeah.
Do you think people have different experiences?
I don't think so.
Based on ethnicity, like dating experiences.
But in what way? Like securing a date?
So are you blind? Maybe like, say, you know, Black Caribbean would have a different experience of dating compared to, I don't know, Indian.
Yeah. So do you think, depending on your ethnicity, does dating look different? And when I asked that question, I was more thinking about, which actually maybe I didn't portray the question across enough, but you know, like maybe in some cultures, within some ethnicities, like arranged marriages or date, you know, it's more in term.
Dating looks very differently from what sometimes people who they're going to marry, right?
Yes.
Like you know, you hear about you know some cultures who they're dating is not necessarily who they're going to marry.
Yeah.
So
true.
yeah, it looks differently.
Yeah. Some of the responses were, so someone said they're Black British. And yes, they have. They're Black Caribbean, sorry, and they will only date Black Caribbean. They think that Black Caribbean people have different experiences to Asians and Caucasian people. You have some people who said yes, definitely they will date within any race. It's more about how the person treats me. Race is not an important factor in regards to dating. There is someone who's even commented about that they date any race, but they would want to marry their own race, as you've just said, which was interesting.
I mean, and
wild to me.
Does that say what age that person is? Because I wonder whether that's still. I remember hearing that quite a lot, you know, growing up. But I wonder whether that's still. That was
in 46 to 50.
Yeah, so it's about my generation sort of age that. But I don't think people still hold that mentality.
I've never done, even if I've heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Someone said they have their preference is a black male, but they will dabble. They will dabble in dating other races. There's someone here who said that their ethnicity is white and they will date any ethnicity. Someone else said that their ethnicity is white, but their preference is to be with Jamaicans.
Very specific, right?
You're on yard man.
That's very
and there's quite a few people who said that they don't actually have a type. But yeah, so it's quite a mix. And there's someone else who said that they are Asian and they have dated and married outside of their ethnicity.
I tell you what, as a black woman, I've noticed that there are more Black Caribbean women who are dating outside of their race. You see that. Whereas, whereas I don't remember seeing that so much growing up.
Back in the day, you wouldn't.
Growing up, you didn't.
It
would be the other way around. Whereas now you see it. Like even
because the streets is the ghetto. It's the ghetto out
there. I was just gonna say, if people are struggling,
the ghetto,
then you've got to widen the pool. Like not to be disrespectful, it's just about race, but I'm saying you have to ask yourself some of those hard questions. Like, is it that you're only willing to find somebody who's from a native island? Or is it that there are other things that you consider to be more important?
Yeah,
like
that's the other thing,
how someone treats you. Do you know what I mean? Is that more important?
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like I've dated outside of my race, and it's nice. You know, the things that you kind of that was really important to me in terms of like being able to have communicate with someone and some similar values. But I did get to a point where I was actually like, I want to date someone where the conversations are easy when talking about foods and culture.
It's like your culture, isn't it?
And actually, it's just much easier. It's not much.
And
it's
sometimes
not saying
the unsaid word. You don't have to say anything, but you get me.
Yeah,
I don't have to say anymore.
Yeah, how you say
certain things.
You just do. It doesn't. And it's not that I kind of thought, oh, you know, I don't want to date you because if I give a certain look, you're going to take it another way. But it's not until when I dated a black woman, I was like, oh gosh, this is much easier.
Yeah.
This is much easier. It's a lot more work you have to do, really.
And I think it's about acceptance, because I think when you said, Shads, about people that are with a different race to their own, and they dabble because they know that they wouldn't be able to marry someone outside their race because of what that comes with.
And what it looks like maybe
But
culturally or to the
I can dabble with
community.
it, but when you're talking about being serious and committed.
That's true, because I've known someone who was a particular race and religion who was dating someone else of a different race for years but could never tell their family. And because there is serious consequences around that in certain...
I remember when I used to go to school and and there was this Turkish guy and he only used to date black women. But he'd never take any of these women home. He'd never take any of these women home.
So and some of them have serious implications though when you think about things like honour-based violence and stuff like that take place. But I want to get to the last question that I had, and this was, what are your 5 non-negotiables in dating, if you have any, or what is your 5 top tips for the next generation? So I'm going to tell you some of the responses, and I would like you then after that to give me your tips to the listeners. Any just a tip, any top tip that you have, and it could be for those who are younger either as well. So someone said to not be honest with themselves, to be clear about what they will and won't accept, not to invite people to your house too soon so they don't know where you live. This is the advice we have.
Someone's clearly had a bad experience on that, right?
No sex before you know where it's leading to. Somebody else said that they're non-negotiable. Body hygiene, smokers.
That hygiene is back again.
Smokers, parents. The non-negotiable is no pocket man.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't me.
I was going to say, it sounded so much.
I know it sounded like me, but it isn't me. And they said they like to think the younger generation has a better idea of what's going on, and that talking stages should last 6 months.
So again,
their talking stages should last 6 months. Someone else talked about their 5 tips is to be honest, to enjoy the experience, to be committed. One of their non-negotiables is that the woman must have her own money. and the woman must have her own place. And
sounds like Shads, isn't it?
No, that's not
Shads
me.
is like checking it.
No, I'm laughing. Some non-negotiables are smokers, someone who doesn't look after their children or take care of their responsibilities, someone who's judgmental, and dating isn't an interview. Someone, their tip saying dating isn't an interview. If there's no commitment, you're just getting to know each other, become someone's friends first, and then slowly develop the relationship. We had someone else who said their non-negotiables is to be educated, have the same morals and values as them. Someone here talks about not employed again. So this job thing is a serious thing in the over 40s, clearly.
I think it is.
And then someone else said about broke, manipulative, lack of transparency. Which actually, all of this comes to stead in regards to one of the things that I said in the beginning is about. We can kind of see a connection here about maybe people's past experiences and what they think about in regards to relationships now.
But there has to be, because it's got to come. Your thought and feelings around something, it's got to come from somewhere, hasn't it?
Yeah. A man, one of the males answered saying their non-negotiables is any woman that's taller than them, any woman that is an alcoholic or a substance abuse. They said make sure as advice, make sure that you what does it say? Religious beliefs. Make sure that you know what you want. And give it your all. So if you're going to do it, then do it. And other people said date intentionally. So yeah.
So you've got time for just one top tip?
I think
just one, literally, before we wrap it up.
Definitely.
So one top tip, ladies, to give to the listeners. Look in the camera. Go on. Give them the top tip.
I would say that first and foremost, when I say have fun, I feel like you're at a certain point in your life where it does feel quite serious, and people are thinking about commitment, yes, and they're thinking about past hurt and wanting to protect themselves. But I think there's something about just like leaning in and connecting with some. It's about opportunity, and I think some of the stuff that you carry, maybe try something different.
Try something new. That's a good tip.
And you know what, Davina, we need to leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think that's been a really good way to kind of leave the show today, and I think it's really been good, Shad.
Interesting, isn't it?
No, it has
we
been
could
a
have
really
gone
good
on and on. We have to do 2 parts to this.
We've got to do the younger
Part
ones.
3.
Yeah.
Part
Under
3.
40s.
Part 4.
Under 40s, yes. I'm really intrigued to know how relationships look like for them now compared
to when we were
dating. Yeah. What they kind of are more kind of fluid about and just kind of let things go and less rigid about. Whereas I want to know, man.
Okay.
So you got to do another survey.
Sounds really good.
You started.
Okay.
So I just want to say, brilliant. And so it's bye from me, Anne-Marie.
Bye from me, Davina.
Bye for me, Shads.
Bye for me, Sharon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.